In 2025, the world will be impacted by events that few could ever imagine. Sarah Colombo had a spiritual experience so intense that it revealed to her 4 events that will change all of our lives. These are not vague predictions or coincidences, but clear, powerful visions of a near future, all stemming from a divine message. What Jesus showed her not only alters the course of history, but also challenges our deepest beliefs about faith, the future, and the truth behind what is to come. Get ready to discover what's about to happen and what it means for your life. Are you prepared for what lies ahead? Sarah Colombo lived a practical life, grounded in what she could see and touch. With over 20 years as a nurse, she believed life followed a logical, predictable course. Faith, though present, was not something that dominated her daily existence. The Bible, prayer, and Bible study were peripheral elements in her life, something for Sundays or moments of need. Until one day, something unexpected happened that made her see the world in a completely different light, challenging all of her beliefs. It was during a morning routine, something everyone does to start their day, that everything changed. While running down the street, a distracted driver struck her. The impact was brutal, but what happened afterward defied any rational explanation. Sarah, who had always viewed life from a scientific perspective, suddenly found herself in a completely different spiritual reality. There, in a place of peace and light, something began to transform within her. The experience was so profound and transformative that her perception of faith, spirituality, and even the meaning of life would never be the same. She felt as if she had been called to something greater. The Bible, Christianity, and the words of Jesus Christ gained new meanings. Her mission now was to share with others what she had lived, a life-altering experience that transcended everything she had ever imagined was possible. But how did this happen, and what did she see during that time outside her body? That's what the following story will reveal. Sarah never imagined that a simple morning run could change her life forever. When she left home, she was simply going through her routine, thinking about so many things: the hospital, the house, family. Never in her mind was there room for the unexpected. But life, in an instant, revealed itself to be unpredictable. A car, driven by a distracted driver, struck her with a violence she never could have anticipated. It was the kind of impact that leaves the body paralyzed, but the mind still alert. What happened next, however, went beyond comprehension. Instead of feeling the physical pain that anyone would expect, Sarah found herself transported to a place of light and serenity. She was outside of her body, but somehow she knew everything was okay. There, she felt no fear, no anguish. On the contrary, she felt an indescribable peace. It was as if she were in a state of worship, connected with something divine, something she had only heard of but had never experienced so tangibly. It was in that moment, while floating in that sublime place, that something extraordinary happened. She saw her deceased father. He appeared before her, smiling warmly, as if he had been waiting for her for a long time. It was a reunion that lifted all the weight from Sarah's soul. She felt a deep connection with the divine, as though receiving a clear message. Life does not end here, there is something more, something greater. This vision wasn't just comforting, it was also challenging, as it brought forth the feeling that something was yet to be revealed. While in that state of peace, Sarah encountered Jesus Christ. He stood before her, not as a distant figure, but as someone very real, close, as if an old friend, knowing her deeply. He looked into her eyes, and with remarkable calm, began to reveal to her 4 visions she would never forget. The first was a disturbing vision, the Great Distraction. Sarah saw the world immersed in electronic devices, people fixated on screens, completely disconnected from everything that truly mattered. The churches were empty, the worship was small, and prayer seemed to have become optional. The second vision was equally alarming, the Great Deception. Sarah saw charismatic leaders, speaking beautiful and charming words, but whose actions didn't match their rhetoric. They seduced the masses with promises of happiness and success, but deep down, they led people down the wrong paths. These leaders were like mirages, offering what they could not deliver. She felt a strong urge to warn people about this, so they wouldn't fall into the trap of false promises. But in the midst of these disturbing visions, there was a revelation of hope, the great vision of awakening. Sarah saw a growing spiritual movement, a return to God, where miracles happened, and at the same time, people faced persecution. It was a movement of faith and devotion, powered by a powerful spiritual force. Jesus told her that this awakening would be crucial, as people were beginning to understand the importance of returning to the essence of faith, through Bible study, prayer, and worship. After the profound spiritual experience, Sarah woke up in the hospital, her body physically damaged, but her soul more alive than ever. The accident, which could have been fatal, left only superficial marks, but the experience she had while in a near-death state was far more impactful than any physical injury. Sarah knew, with unwavering certainty, that she had a mission. Jesus Christ had spoken to her, revealed deep truths about life, faith, and the future, and now she needed to share this with the world. The process of telling her story was not easy. Many people were skeptical, not believing in such an intense and supernatural experience. But Sarah felt in her heart that she could not remain silent. She began to share her experience with family, friends, and even strangers she encountered along the way. Each conversation was an opportunity to sow faith, awaken in others the importance of spirituality and prayer. While many doubted, others were deeply moved by her words, finding in them a reflection of their own doubts and anxieties. Sarah's return to ordinary life was undoubtedly a great transformation. She felt that everything she did needed to be more intentional, more focused on her mission of sharing the message she had received. The Bible became more than just a sacred book to her, it became a source of daily guidance. Sarah knew that, as a Christian, her life should reflect the principles of the gospel, and she was willing to dedicate her time and energy to spreading those teachings. Her heart burned for this mission, and she felt that, in some way, everything in her life had prepared her for this great task. Sarah's experience was much more than just a story to tell. She felt in her heart that she had received a divine mission, one that now became a part of her life on a deep level. Sarah knew her spiritual journey wasn't separate from everyday life, but was intertwined with everything she did. Her view of faith and religion had changed, and she began to see everything as an opportunity to serve God and others. Christianity, once something she simply practiced, was now a way of life, a living truth she needed to share. She constantly reflected on what Jesus Christ had revealed to her, especially about the importance of living in tune with God and resisting the distractions of the world. Today, digital distractions, the incessant pursuit of instant pleasures, and the lack of focus are huge obstacles to the faith of many young Christians. Sarah now encouraged everyone to become aware of this, to recognize the distractions of the modern world, and to spiritually prepare themselves, keeping their focus on what truly matters: prayer, the Bible, and true connection with God. Sarah knew people needed practical examples to follow. She began creating small moments of faith within her routine and suggested that everyone, no matter their occupation, do the same. For example, she encouraged families to establish moments of prayer together, as a way to strengthen both family bonds and faith. She believed that by living with purpose and integrity, everyone could reflect the light of the gospel in their lives, just as she had experienced during her spiritual journey. After her spiritual experience, Sarah found herself facing a mix of complex emotions. At first, she felt a certain fear, almost as if she were in a new reality she didn't know how to handle. The psychological impact was deep. She constantly revisited what she had experienced, trying to understand what had really happened. The peace she had felt during her time outside of her body was so intense that, somehow, it seemed unattainable upon her return to everyday life. This created a sense of dissonance, an existential anguish that made her question the routine and the superficiality of so many things that once filled her days. But at the same time, there was immense gratitude. She knew her experience had not been a coincidence, but a gift from God. With that, the fear slowly dissipated, giving way to a spiritual renewal. The difficulties she faced when trying to share her experience with others began to be seen as opportunities for growth. Every interaction with someone who didn't understand or believe her story challenged her to deepen her own faith and understanding of her mission. The near-death experience, instead of weakening her, had strengthened her emotionally and spiritually, giving her a renewed purpose. These emotional changes also reflected in her relationships. Before, Sarah might have distanced herself a little from people, focused on work and everyday life. Now, she felt more connected, more willing to listen and help others. Her understanding of forgiveness and reconciliation had expanded, especially after the vision of her deceased father. She knew life was fragile, and that, no matter how much people fail, forgiveness is the key to true peace. Her near-death experience transformed her not only spiritually but also emotionally, creating a new perspective on what truly matters in life. Sarah's spiritual experience was not something she could simply keep to herself. She knew her life had to reflect the depth of the transformation she had lived. Daily prayer, which once was something sporadic, became the foundation of her routine. She spent hours in moments of reflection and worship, seeking connection with God and diving deeper into Bible studies. Her view of faith expanded from a simple religious practice to an immersive experience that touched all aspects of her life. Christianity, for her, ceased to be just a part of her life and became the essence of everything she did. Moreover, the practice of prayer in community became a priority. Sarah began attending more services and encouraging others to do the same. The idea that the church is not just a place of worship, but a family of faith, was one of the most striking lessons she took from her experience. She knew that community faith was crucial for strengthening spirituality, especially in times of adversity. Her dedication to group prayer reflected her belief that, together, Christians could overcome any challenge. However, the greatest change was in relation to her work. Sarah, who had been a nurse for so long, began to feel that her mission was somewhere else. The desire to help others in a deeper, more spiritual way led her to step away from nursing and seek a way to spread the gospel to all. She began dedicating more time to sharing her experience with Christian youth groups, teaching them about the importance of living a devotional life. Her change in lifestyle wasn't just a choice, but a response to the mission she felt God had placed in her heart. When Sarah started sharing her spiritual experience with the religious community, she encountered different reactions. Some religious leaders, those more attuned to the movement of the Holy Spirit, welcomed her with open arms, recognizing the depth and authenticity of what she was sharing. They understood that Sarah's encounter with Jesus and her visions were a divine blessing, a way for God to reveal something important for the present day. These leaders encouraged her to continue her journey, share her testimony with others, and strengthen the faith of those around her. However, not everyone reacted the same way. Some members of the religious community, particularly the more skeptical ones, questioned the veracity of Sarah's experience. To them, something so extraordinary seemed impossible to be real. They were uncomfortable with the idea that God could manifest himself in such a direct and personal way. They challenged her to explain, in more rational terms, what she had experienced. Yet, with her unshakable faith, Sarah wasn't swayed by their questions. She knew what she had encountered, and her heart was at peace, knowing that her mission was bigger than others' doubts. Despite the challenges, Sarah saw that, over time, her experience began to bring transformation to those who listened. Some, who had been initially skeptical, began to open up to the possibility that God was communicating in a new and profound way. Sarah's testimony, though met with resistance at times, began to bear fruit in faith and renewal within the community. It was a journey of perseverance, where she learned that, even amidst skepticism, divine truth will always find its way. The visions Sarah had during her spiritual experience were not just revelations about the future, but also practical lessons that could be applied in any Christian's daily life. The first vision, the Great Distraction, revealed to her the importance of combating the constant temptation of technology and spiritual disconnection. In a world where people spend more time on their screens than with loved ones or in prayer, Sarah suggested that families set aside a daily time for disconnection. She proposed a simple yet effective idea: reserve time daily, without electronic devices, to dedicate to prayer or Bible reading as a family. Whether at the beginning or end of the day, the key was ensuring that distractions didn't take the place of intimacy with God. The second vision, the Great Deception, warned her about the proliferation of leaders who don't live according to the teachings of Jesus. For those following religious leaders, she advised always checking their actions and behaviors in relation to the gospel. When a leader strays from the true essence of Christianity, it's necessary to have discernment not to be led by false promises. Sarah suggested that people maintain a constant practice of Bible study to avoid being easily deceived by empty words. In the third vision, the Great Awakening vision, Sarah saw the importance of being spiritually prepared for difficult times when persecutions and hardships may arise. She encouraged everyone to strengthen their faith, get involved in prayer groups, and study God's Word. Christianity is not only for times of comfort, but also for when challenges emerge. Her practical suggestion was to seek guidance from spiritual mentors, those who already lived their faith deeply, so that the spiritual journey would be firmer and safer. During her near-death experience, one of the most impactful revelations for Sarah was the reunion with her deceased father. He appeared before her, not with a look of judgment, but with a warm and welcoming smile, as though waiting for her. This moment was profoundly transformative for her, as it made her reflect on forgiveness and reconciliation, especially with people she had lost or with whom she had left unresolved issues. Throughout her life, Sarah had held grudges, like many of us, believing it was difficult to forgive certain offenses. However, that encounter with her father taught her that true peace only comes when the heart is freed from the weight of anger and resentment. Sarah learned that, just as Jesus Christ teaches us to forgive even those who hurt us deeply, true healing comes when we decide to release forgiveness. She realized that by not forgiving, she was placing herself in an emotional prison that only distanced her from the peace that God desires for all. This lesson not only made her reconsider her own family issues, but also motivated her to teach others the importance of resolving conflicts and seeking reconciliation, not only with others but also with themselves. Forgiveness, in her view, is not a favor for others, but a key to emotional and spiritual freedom. The message Sarah shares about forgiveness is not limited to family matters. She believes forgiveness is essential for all relationships. She suggests that for those struggling with feelings of anger or resentment, they should begin with prayers of forgiveness and ask God to purify their hearts. Prayer can be the bridge to healing, as it helps release the weight that burdens the soul. Reconciliation, she says, should be seen as an ongoing process, one that requires courage and willingness, but ultimately leads to profound spiritual growth.